Business leaders know the future is already here. The economy is shifting. Non-humans are entering the workforce. Nothing feels certain. SHRM understands those evolving challenges, both in the workplace and the wider world. In this podcast, we'll bring together authors, researchers, executives, and non-traditional experts to help you take on the challenges others haven't yet considered. Because you don't need to be a futurist, you need actionable insights now. You need to be a Tomorrowist. I'm Jerry Wan. Welcome to Tomorrowist, where we explore the trends shaping the future of work. We're recording live at the CEO Summit in Virginia, where we're sitting down with business leaders who are experiencing firsthand the trends redefining how we work, lead, and compete. They're sharing their insights, lessons, and strategies to help us prepare for what's next. Here to share his perspective is Don Buckner, founder and CEO of madeinusa.com. Don, welcome to Tomorrowist.
Glad to be here.
Lots to talk about. You have an extensive history in manufacturing, and now obviously in the retail space, you have your eyes and ears and consumer trends, how people are shopping, and how the things that are happening not only in our communities and our country around the world are showing up in purchasing behavior and also on the manufacturing side. Obviously, these are issues that are important to our audience, whether they be executives at our companies or just the consumer learning how to shop. And so let's talk broadly. So take us through a very quick version of sort of your history and sort of how you ended up in founding madeinusa.com.
Sure. So started actually in 1997. I started buying domains. Just for whatever reason, felt led to buy madeinusa.com, which, by the way, bought it from a gentleman who was from China. And then bought madeintheusa.com, madeinamerica.com, and americanmade.com. So I've had them 27 years. Had 4 other ventures in the meantime, exited those, and now decided just basically to build more or less the Amazon of U.S. made products.
And why now versus the other, almost 3 decades in building other businesses? Did you feel it was the right time to go with this venture?
That's a good question. One, the technology really wasn't there. And neither was online shopping as a rule. 20 years ago, if you thought of online shopping, it really did not exist. With online growing 9% a year and just topped $1 trillion, it's a significant market. But people are moving away from bricks and mortar and buying more products online and have them delivered to their home. So the trend in that direction is great. The trend is also in trying to keep dollars and jobs in this country, and we're just trying to facilitate that.
Over your 3-decade outlook, obviously there has been technological shifts. The phone, mobile payments, buy now, pay later is relatively new. You can swipe and have something delivered. Amazon Prime really disrupted how we perceive as consumers the speed of delivery. And yet, there's been an impact on in-person retail, right? And so we've seen brick and mortar stores come and go, different brands come and go. What is your broad outlook? And then we can go a little bit more in specifics, but sort of the shifts that's happened in the last 3 decades, and then more importantly for our audience, what is the next, can't predict 30 years from now, but what does the next few quarters or few years look like?
So there's what tends to be, we think the future is actually going to be AI shopping. It's going to know your needs and wants and before you do, in many cases, and already place those. The subscription model is already in place in a lot of cases, which is manually driven currently, but we think that's going to be automated at some point. So that is, probably 10 years down the road, but we want to be ahead of that curve.
What is your insight in terms of the generational shifts, right? So we as different generations, I'm a millennial, there's younger folks, older folks, and it's another pastime to make broad assumptions about how other generations behave. And obviously there's a really easy way to sort of have that manifest itself as in consumer behavior, whether you prefer shopping in person or you buy sight unseen online, and now there's even live shopping, which is another new trend. How do those generational changes affect your e-commerce business, and what do you think is coming in the next couple of years related to that?
So we are very sensitive to that generational idea because we like to use a term called patriotic spending, which is people are motivated outside of just price or quality, but also origin. And they understand the dollars stay here. So what generation has that motivation or cares about that idea? Obviously, there are unions, there are veterans, which across a broad spectrum of generations, We find that about 55% or maybe even 60% of the shopping is done by women. And so, you have to look at that segment as well. But our age group demographic typically is 50 plus, is more than half of our business. And so our mission is to educate consumers of all generations the importance of spending their American dollars on American products to save American jobs.
Take us through sort of how you see that. So you mentioned the majority of or the largest demographic of your customer base is 50 plus. Are they using the same kind of technology as different generations? And how does that manifest in how you plan for not only today, but for tomorrow?
So technology, great. So great question. About 60% of our business is done on mobile devices. So apps are a big deal. So we built our app for that very reason. And it's all about reducing the friction. Whatever that's pay on time or pay with whatever means necessary or somebody wants to pay or prefers to pay. You have to have all those tools in place to reduce that friction. And of course, shipping is a big issue as well. And so because we don't warehouse anything, the manufacturers do their own fulfillment. So it's going to take a little longer, it's going to cost a little more, but people understand that. We're almost, as madeinusa.com, a luxury brand. People expect that they're going to spend a little more money on that product.
So not too specific, we happen to be recording October 2025, but general trends and things that are affecting the economy, people are more mindful of what they spend, how much they have to spend. Obviously, there's impact of all sorts of economic forces on just the everyday person, everyday American. How do you think the consumers are balancing, as you mentioned, the term that you used was patriotic spending, the balance on spending perhaps a premium amount on that, knowing that it is important to do so, or that the consumers believe that it's important to do so, but also being mindful of that, because we've also seen as a global trend, Amazon, right? Walmart, other companies that are just leading with price, and without any regard for quality or, fast fashion, right? They end up in landfills all the time. How do you think that the consumer is balancing that? And what are the trends that you're seeing there?
So we have identified 9 personas that we think would be more inclined to be a patriotic spender. What we find is that it's not for everybody. Our mission is to impact 5% of the spending. If we can do that, and the multiplier effect is significant. We have to have people think beyond the purchase of a cheap product. We're addicted to cheap. Sadly, it's a dopamine hit we get when we buy a sale or get a product like on cheap. But we have to move away from that. And there's a segment of our society, there's a survey that says 17% of the population is willing to spend a 30% premium on American-made product. Well, that 17% is 45 million Americans. And so they haven't had a quick, easy way to find, identify, and purchase a U.S.-made product until now. So our mission is to direct their spending back to these manufacturers, which, by the way, 85% are family-owned businesses, and they're really struggling. And when they put their product up on Amazon, Amazon lists their product next to an imported product for less money, and they lose the sale anyway. So it's a very, very challenging for U.S. manufacturers right now as a whole.
So before you can sell it, or before you can help your vendors or merchants sell it on madeinusa.com, it's got to get made, right? And there's been a lot of talk, not just now in this current climate, but even before, about the offshoring of manufacturing. The broad understanding was that American-made quality products were of higher quality, and companies ship them abroad for not just quality reasons, but obviously cost reasons and efficiency reasons. What are the trends that you're seeing now? Are there a reversal of trends from everything being made overseas? Obviously, there's a lot of global geopolitical things that are changing also at what country things get made, and we're seeing a lot of news on that regularly. Are things coming back, and is it sustainable for your merchants and your partners to continue to make things here stateside and have enough margin to sustain a healthy business?
So everything is driven by demand. Everything's driven by demand. So if consumers demand an American-made product, it is highly sustainable. The question is, are we going to, it has to do with our sovereignty. I like to tell a story of 97% of our clothing is not made here, 80% of our pharmaceuticals aren't made here. None of our phones or technology is made here. So if we were cut off today by, let's say, China, we would be 6 months from now would be sick, naked, and Neanderthals. So our sovereignty's already left. We just have to figure out how to get that back. It's taken 25 years to get in the place we are, and I can talk more about how that happened. But the trade has changed. Manufacturing is the basis of all wealth creation. It's taken part A and part B and put it with making part C and selling that. That's how wealth is created. And China has figured out how to do that in a significant way, and that's how they've created wealth through manufacturing.
Smart leadership means smart investments. Equip your team with the future-focused strategies they need at SHRM Talent 26 in Dallas, April 19th through the 22nd, and save $200 on every ticket when you register by December 19th. You can learn more at shrm.org/talent26-podcast.
So let's stay on manufacturing for a little bit, Don, because there's two things that are impacting manufacturing broadly, and then this is outside of some of the socio and geopolitical forces that we've seen, is technology, AI, automation. We've seen videos of warehouses with no human beings. We've seen delivery robots on our streets. We also know that there are, as with every generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha coming right behind them have a different tendency in terms of how they prefer to work, the type of work they want to do. Again, a broad generalization, but perhaps younger folks in manufacturing aren't as correlated as in past generations. So let's start there first in terms of generation. What are you seeing and then hearing from your partners in terms of the future of the labor component of manufacturing in this country?
So sadly, the manufacturing has kind of a history of being dirty and hardworking and hot, but that's not the case anymore. Not as a rule. There is some monotonous type technology work that is done. My dad refers to those as worker bees. There are people that are worker bees that do that and very satisfied with life. But the generation seems to be moving away from that. So the automation has kicked in. We are also working towards some legislation to actually allow seniors to work beyond retirement without penalty. And right now it's $22,400 is the limit for Social Security. And every $2 over that they make, $1 is taken out of Social Security. So we're talking about moving that threshold up to about $100,000 because these people are trapped in poverty and they have all this tribal knowledge and all this, and they want to work. And so why not let them be productive part of our society versus living in poverty that they're in now? They want to work, and so they're kind of trapped in that. And it's good for the politicians too because that'll generate votes.
Sure. Those are policy things that I think can rest in the voting booths and for politicians. But for business leaders, are there things, and then we have audience members who are executives at Fortune 10, 50, 100 that lead large manufacturing operations. We also have audience members who are small business owners, perhaps partners in madeinusa.com. What things can they do to attract and to retain younger or more technologically comfortable workforces that, again, may have these older or different perceptions of manufacturing?
Yeah, so there's lots of seminars on how to work with all those different generations. And I think the biggest thing that stands out of that is tolerance. You have to tolerate their schedules. You have to work with them and work with their hours. And many of them like to work late into the night. And so if you can adapt to those type of schedules, it really ties down to freedom. They want their free time. They value their time over wealth or over monetary things. You also have to create an environment for your culture to be more family, to care. They will work for a company that has a sense of caring, a sense of appreciation, because appreciation is a big factor today. Sure. And so those pat on the backs, if you will, or those appreciations outside of monetary appreciation, it goes much further with the younger generations today.
And it's not uncorrelated, but the technological impacts of automation, of AI, and we always say on this show, AI today is the best AI will ever be. It's only going to accelerate how much it changes. And we're seeing that almost on a daily, weekly basis. How does that change for a small manufacturing company, a family-owned one? And how can leaders in that world prepare to deal with the changes that are coming tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a real challenge because many of those smaller manufacturers are tied to their community in a big way. And so they care about their employees, and they truly do not even want to replace their employees, even though there's cost savings, because those are family members. They care about them, they care about their families, they watch them grow up many generations. There's lots of companies in this country that are hundreds of years, 100 years old, and they're resisting, in many cases, they're resisting that automation to a large degree. And so and they don't understand it. That's another component as well.
One trend that we know of that we haven't talked about today is that most of the most small businesses in America are owned by folks that are Gen X or Boomer or older. And there is a transfer, an ongoing transfer. And again, this trend too will accelerate in terms of they're either retiring or not wanting to run their businesses anymore. Touching upon the trend that you shared, which is that younger folks have a different definition of not just the work that they want to do, perhaps a variance in the type of businesses that they want to own, right? And so we hear it often from blue collar service businesses, retail shops, dry cleaners and the like, that they can't give it to their kids because their kids don't want it. And so what are the trends there? And then how can folks stay ahead of it? Because there's small businesses, is it all going to get eaten up by private equity? Like what's going to happen there?
Well, that's a big question. I want to say that there is a trend towards private equity and VC groups. That's a real challenge because that's the backbone of this country, is small business, and to move that into private equity with less caring, less culture, it's all about the profit and the bottom line, and the exit really is what they care about. That is going to be a real challenge. I don't know how that changes. Those succession plans have to start early, and that's where founders have to understand, okay, what is my succession plan? Is it to sell to my employees? And which is obviously a viable option as well, and which many of them are doing at this time, because those employees obviously are going to continue to care about the culture and the company itself.
When we going back to madeinusa.com, what does this year look like from a revenue perspective, attention, number of customers? You don't have to share all the specifics, but what does the 5-year trend look like? Is it flat? Is it going up? And where do you see the next 3 or 4 years going?
So I would put Made in USA in still, even though we've been at this 4 years, took 2 years to build the technology, 2 years to get 1,000 manufacturers onboarded, to get enough of the right products, we have yet to actually go to market. Even though we're live, I would still put us in the startup category, pre-revenue almost. Even though we have some revenue, it's not enough to talk about. But we are in the front end of a capital raise, so we can, quote unquote, go to market.
Is the consumer base or the target market for consumers for madeinusa.com all stateside, or is there a global appetite for American-made product?
So that's a very good question. We believe that somewhere around 5% of the world's population have the means and the desire to own a U.S.-made product. However, it's a challenge to find, identify, and purchase, just like here in the States. So we have a plug-in partner that we can plug in and actually ship internationally. It'll be a landed cost in their currency and their language. So that'll help bring some of those dollars back into this country. And a lot of these smaller manufacturers have never dreamed of exporting a product. Well, we can actually help them do that and facilitate that for them in a big way.
I think that's important that, you talk about keeping American money here, but the other part is got to bring outside money back in. Yes. If we are, if the perception is that so much money is leaving the country. We talked about it briefly, Don, but, it is really changing how we shop. Live shopping, by American standards, it's probably, we're not the most advanced country or most comfortable or the country that's doing it the most. But live shopping is here, right? Even large platforms like eBay are having live shopping shows. It is, for folks who are unfamiliar, it is QVC on your phone 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
And you could buy something accidentally by swiping your phone. How do those trends, because those impact large manufacturers, large retailers, we might see large, big box retailers like Target and Walmart getting into this space, obviously. Amazon's doing it already. How does that impact small businesses that can't compete? Because again, the virtue of live shopping is not only a psychological or a sort of emotional purchase. Mm-hmm. It's seen as cheaper, right? Mm-hmm. It is an impulse purchase. And so for clients that are partners of yours, manufacturers on madeinusa.com or other small businesses, how are we seeing the impact of that?
So I think it goes back again to the demographic that is going to want to buy American-made products. Do we really haven't studied that side of things, but I do believe that the ones that are going to buy patriotic spending are not those shoppers. They're going to be more of the traditional, at least at this stage. Maybe 10 years it may change. If you've got, basically it's people jumping around, dancing around, you should own this, right? So, and putting the sales pitch on people, well, I don't think that's our clientele at this stage. There may be at some point in the future, but at this stage, I don't think it is.
We talked about culture, we talked about organizations. You said you have 1,000 vendors uploaded, or you work with 1,000 partners, and so you have your eyes and ears across large organizations, small organizations. What drives good culture, and what are some of the best workplace practices, policies, and cultural components that audience members can adopt or continue to do well?
Well, it boils down to relationships. And I hate to use an employee because I don't like that term. I like working with. I don't have employees or people I work with, right? So if you can help them to understand they are part of something bigger than themselves, share vision, cast vision continually. And because vision leaks. And if you cast vision and people can buy into the vision, it changes the entire culture. Everybody's moving in the same direction at the same time and trying to accomplish the same goals. So that is something, and you have to do it in a way that, I hate to say it, is loving, but you have to do it in a way that helps them understand that, again, they're doing and being part of something bigger than themselves, and it's worthwhile.
And talk to us about one more thing, which is you talk to leaders from small organizations, family-run operations, to larger ones. What are people looking for when it comes to seeking who can take over their organization? Leadership, we'll talk about succession planning. What are some things that people can learn if they want to be considered for that? And what can owners and leaders and executives look to in your folks?
So you have to have what I call the eye of the tiger. That means you want it. You want it, and that there is nothing going to stop you. And you have to have that determination. You have to get there. You be the first one to leave, first one there, last one to leave. And you have to say, what's next? You have to have that ambition is key to a lot of things, but also attitude. You have to have an attitude of understanding the needs of your customers, needs of your employees, the needs of your vendors, and then how all that mixes together. And that actually takes, you have to work under someone who understands that at a very high level and be able to translate that. Because typically, even founders falter in one of those three areas. And they'll have employees, but the employees hate them. They have vendors that they beat up on, or they have customers that they think are robbing them. And so you have to figure out how to put all those pieces together in a way that creates success. And if you look at the great leaders, that's how they do it.
So we've touched on a lot today. Online shopping trends, demographic, shopping preferences, the impact of generational changes and technology on our labor force. Obviously, there's a whole lot of, whole host of policy and things that we could talk about. But for our audience members who are, working for large organizations, or perhaps have family who are in small manufacturing families, in that these issues are extremely top of mind. And so leave us with one thing that our audience members can focus on, learn a new skill, or start paying attention to, so that they can stay ahead of the trends that are going to help them, trends that will impact them tomorrow.
So we use a couple phrases. One is the power of change is in your pocket. We like to use that phrase. The other thing we like to say is, if you want to change a community, change its economy. And so we're facilitating sending dollars to those communities. If you want to change a country, change its communities. So it's an interesting trend to try and divert some of these dollars from leaving the country and staying in this country. And the more times dollars get passed around, this is the point that most people miss, is that if you pass $100 around a room and there's 10 people in a room, you just created $1,000 worth of wealth with just $100. So the more times dollars change hands within a community or within a country, more wealth is created and more taxes are collected and more sustainability is. We're one of the cleanest countries in the world. So we can easily promote the idea that if somebody buys an imported product, they're contributing to climate change if they subscribe to that. So there's lots of different motivations that people have to make purchases, and we're going to try and touch on those, many as we can. But keeping dollars in this country is just the critical component.
Awesome. Don Buckner, founder and CEO of MadeInUSA.com. Thanks for your time today.
My pleasure.
That'll do it for this week's episode. Be sure to check the show notes for resources on how to invest in your people and empower the next generation of the manufacturing workforce. See you next time on Tomorrowist. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe to Tomorrowist wherever you get your podcast. We also publish a weekly newsletter with in-depth articles and the latest SHRM research to help keep you in the know about the trends shaping the future of work. You can subscribe and find all of our episodes on our website at shrm.org/Tomorrowist. Thanks for listening. And remember, the workplace is changing rapidly. You don't have to be a futurist, be a Tomorrowist.
SHRM.